it's been really interesting, hasn't it, as how far we've come as a country. It is really fantastic to think that we've sort of eliminated the virus from New Zealand as far as we know. And there's sort of no sort of transmission of it happening throughout the country, which is great. And it's allowing us now to socialise and normalise, I think, a little bit more. When you reflect back, way back, February, March, when I guess the lockdown approach started to really happen, and the way that we've had to adapt and go through this has been quite an amazing journey. And think that we're at June now, and this period of time that's gone by in all of our lives, that's been so unique. But some of the things that we have had to do, and we need to be mindful of, I guess, where we've come from. I don't know if you guys can remember when we're first in our level 4 really, and level 3, where you go for your recreation, your walk, and people were taking this so really seriously, which was great to see, where you'd actually cross the road to maintain that big distance away from each other. Probably didn't communicate as well as what we could, just to say hi, but it was so unreal and so unusual. But as time went on, I think we all adapted into it and got more relaxed with the fact that we have this personal responsibility to what we are doing, and trying to maintain our own health and safety, I guess, in the health side of things, so we don't transmit it. But it has been, I guess, when we look at that, the standard, it's important that we don't forget these things as well. Obviously, this could come back as time goes by, and I was just sort of reflecting a little bit around the hygiene protocols that, the washing hands for 20 seconds. At first, it seemed such a long time to be able to doing that, but not so much anymore. It just becomes something that we start to do. For some of us, it was a real change and emphasis when you had to go and try and coordinate your elbow to get up to catch a sneeze or a cough. That was something that took a little bit of a change in technique to be able to do that. But again, being able to do it now, and it's something that comes a little bit more normal. And the other one, obviously, that's really big, is to stay at home if you're not feeling so well. And again, for most of us who have had this period of time working at home, it's not, again, something that's really that unusual and that foreign to do anymore. And we've adapted well to those sort of environments. So in many ways, we have come a long way. And and just a little reminder, I guess, that we do have our self-responsibility and maintaining the fact that we want to keep this virus at hand within our country and not have it spread across our communities. So it's awesome to think that we can actually get out and about and do a little bit more of the normal things that we've been used to be doing. So welcome to this week's collective conversation, to this version of it. Our guest for this week, we've got Colin Stone. Colin is the relationship manager for Sport New Zealand. I guess Colin's really fast becoming the Ashby Bloomfield, really, within these sessions. His insightful updates and the clarity of the details that he shares with us has been so well received, and we're really thankful for that degree of professionalism that you bring to this, Colin. So welcome, Colin. It's great to have you on board. Lisa Jones, the CEO of Wellington Hockey. COVID's really impacted her organisation massively, and she's going to share some of her insights to what is front of mind for her in getting her organisation up and running, and how she's prepared for the future, especially if similar events happen again. So welcome, Lisa, and it'll be great to hear some of those insights and what you are currently doing with Wellington Hockey. I'm Mark Watson. I work with Sport Wellington and the community sport arm, and I'll be updating you from a Sport Wellington perspective today as what we're going through. Just as a reminder, throughout the session, if you have questions, the chat function is there for you all to use, or if that's not working for you for some reason, there's an email with info@sportwellington.org. So that'll be, encourage you to ask questions. There's things on your mind, because there's a lot of changes have gone through and what we're going through, and it's great to see sport actually happening out there again, sport and active recreation, and people doing things. From the Sport Wellington perspective, we've been in a response phase for this period of time that we've been through lockdown, and we're starting to go through a new transition where we're going into recovery. But some of the many things that we've been really pleased with what we have noticed, and the big thing is this collaboration that we've noticed across our communities, and how people have really worked together. And good examples of some of the things that have happened and still happening is the relationship, the stakeholder relationship support that we've been able to put out there to you people in the sport world and the active recreation world. Things that came out of all those sort of consultation was the contact tracing protocols and information and how we could actually use those things, and they have been in use over the last few weeks and month. Health and safety plans, which became a massive part of what this whole recovery process has been about. And then, the alert levels, informing each other around those sorts of things and helping each other understand how we can bring our activities back up and running. And again, the big one that was at the very beginning we'll all be really aware of is the financial services and advice and the whole financial area. And I guess ongoing, that's something that we will be doing a lot more of as we're going forward. And the other real plus that we've found is the formation of the regional response group. And this is where, the various entities across health, the councils and active recreation organisations and sport have come together in Sport New Zealand to really take a more collaborative approach to actually responding to what has needed to be put in place to help recover, I guess, or help get sport back up and running again. So, as I said, we're entering a new phase of recovery. And it means that from Sport Wellington's perspective, we're starting to look at things in another sort of aspects where our key thing, I guess, is to provide real good leadership and connection and support across the region for you all. And when I was mentioning a little bit about the regional response group, I guess that's one that is now being looked at as to how we can keep that group having the power that it does have and to actually impact the region so that we can come out of this in a really strong position as we go forward. There's 10 pieces of work that was put in place by that group, and a lot of this has been progressed over the last 2 months. And some of the big pieces of work about looking at what the future could look like are starting to come in and have an impact in the next phase. Also, some of the messaging, from all of these entities that are involved in that group, again, we're looking at actually how we can bring all that together. One of the real strategies that sits in behind it is the Living Well strategy. And this is an initiative that I guess the regional response group is part of and falls out of. And it's that collaborative approach to really achieving well-being in our region. When we look at well-being, it is around improving physical and mental well-being. It's about personal development and achievement, and it's about social connectivity. But it's how we do that through physical activity. And this is the framework that really encourage you all, if you haven't actually really had a good look at it, it is on our website, about how we're actually bringing all of these entities in our region together to have a common message and a common thread that we can actually create a really thriving and healthy region for people who live here in the Wellington region. So that's going to be a big piece of work as we go forward through this recovery phase. And I do encourage you to go onto our website and just familiarise yourself with it. Some great initiatives across that piece of work, and it'll be more and more prevalent to us all as we go forward. One of the things that is still in action and is getting towards the end of June, where it will close, is the Community Relief Fund. Again, this is a Sport New Zealand initiative that's really to help regional sporting organisations and clubs really cover some of the fixed costs that they may have incurred from that period from, I think it's from April through to June. And we just encourage you to really keep looking into what is available in there for you. And if you haven't put in applications, then there's still time to do that, and we'd really encourage that to actually keep progressing and helping your clubs if you're an RSO, or if you are a club and you haven't seen much about it, please do go onto our website and you'll see more and more about that. One of the new funds that Sport Wellington's just about to launch is called the Sport Wellington Return to Play Fund. It's a new one that it's about reimbursing you the costs that you may have incurred for some of the health and safety initiatives that you've had to put in place. So up to $3,000 will be available for all community organisations, and details from this will be on our website early next week. It's just getting formed right now, As I said, it's really to help community providers and sport providers just to recoup some of the costs that they may have incurred across in this time when you actually have been implementing a lot of your health and safety requirements. So this will open next week, and there will be more and more information come available throughout the week and in our newsletter that comes out, which will be coming out early next week. But I do point you to the website to come up onto that. Just another really interesting part when we're looking at this recovery phase that we're going through, and with some of the webinars that Sport Wellington are actually currently doing. Tomorrow we have a webinar where we're looking at the economy and change. So why do we need to think differently? And tomorrow we've got Brad Olsen from Infometrics. And some of you may be familiar with Brad Olsen. He's on TV quite a lot, talking on the news about the economy and the impact that it's having through the COVID area. What we've going to be doing over the next 3 weeks is just taking a series of these webinars where we are actually looking at the impact of major events such as COVID. And it's to have a look at what history tells us, and then what innovators and what future thinkers are telling us, and the learnings that we can take from these such global events. That actually, what are we actually thinking right now? Because I think it's important that we all know that our economy's had a massive hit, and things will change and will get different, especially once a lot of this relief funding that the government's putting out there. So what we're going to be broaching tomorrow with Brad is things around the effect of the New Zealand economy on us all across, and specifically actually looking at the Greater Wellington region and Wairarapa. And just having a look at some of the demographics involved in that. So, you know, these are all things that will actually have an impact on some of the decision making that we may have to make in the future. Also looking at the impact that the government budgets are having, specifically then also going into the area of sport. I know that a lot of the details aren't out, but again, there's things in history and some of the information that Brad is pulling together will make quite an interesting little perspective on what is actually going to be in front of us. And, you know, I think ultimately how long, you know, will these economic downturns last for? Those sort of questions is what we want to sort of go for with this one. So it's the bigger picture. The following week, we want to move more into what are some of the opportunities. So if we understand what the picture is going to look like a little bit, then we can start to have a look at what some of these opportunities will be. And we're really excited to have a really cool, innovative company come in and look into this with us. And then the third week is actually to get an innovative organisation who we're just working on finding right now to actually talk about what they've done in the past and what they're thinking right now about how they're adapting and responding to the current situation. So this seminar is at 1:30 tomorrow. If you do want to register and come along and listen in on to that, then there will be a link put up on our chat function here, but it's also as an Eventbrite and it's advertised on our website, and encourage you to really come in on board and learn, I guess, about some of these things. He's a fascinating speaker. Brad Olsen's had he's only a young guy, but he's done a lot of amazing things in his career today, and has a lot of interest in, especially around some of the stats and that he's worked across in the healthy living sort of area of I guess what we're all about is well-being and those sort of aspects. So yeah, so encourage you to sign on up and come along. It should be good. And I guess it just reminds us of this theme that, you know, we are at level 1. It's exciting to get out and about, but there's still a lot that we need to be doing and thinking about as we go forward, and to maintain some of the really good work that we've all done as New Zealanders to help actually get put COVID in its place at the moment in our country. Right, so Colin, I'd really like to invite you on now, if that's okay, to give us a Sport New Zealand update. It's obviously a very busy time for Sport New Zealand, and really appreciate you giving your time again today, Colin. So welcome along.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Just a quick comment to make about the Return to Play Fund, which is a separate fund, nothing to do with the Community Resilience Fund, which has been out for a while. But make the point that it is open to all organisations in the play, active, recreation and sports sector. So the criteria that's applied at the moment around the Community Resilience Fund about affiliations to regional bodies and national bodies doesn't apply. So it has a much broader base in terms of organisations that can apply. So as Mark has suggested, please have a look at the Sport Wellington website when that information is available. And if you think you fit the bill, then please reply. I thought I'd just take back a little bit in terms of where we're at from a Sport New Zealand's point of view, before we move forward. Obviously, when we went into level 4 lockdown, Sport New Zealand started working from home like every other organisation, and we immediately set up a COVID response team. So basically, we suspended our business plan and moved into an emergency business plan, which meant that a lot of the people within our organisation were redeployed into different roles to do with recovery and response. So basically that meant that 60% of the Sport New Zealand staff were really pointing in a different direction, sometimes completely new roles, or sometimes it was another role on top of their current role. So, for example, in my case, not only am I the regional partnership manager for the Central and North Island, but I also sit within the short-term response team and lead the play and active recreation response team. So that work, I guess, has continued over the period of the various different alert levels. So we do have an immediate response team, we have a short-term response team, and then we have what's called a system recovery team. So where we're moving to now, clearly now that we're into alert level 1, things are beginning to change, and you'll see this across a number of agencies, both local government but also central government as well, where there's been emergency management teams or crisis management teams in place, and people have been seconded into different roles. People are now starting to move back into that sort of recovery mode, and we're exactly the same. So we're just on the back of the 265 million that you are aware that is coming our way through the budget bid. We are now sort of moving now into that system recovery phase. So for us, that's a real recalibration again of our organisation, and moving the chess pieces around, I guess, of individuals into new roles. The budget bid itself, as you will be aware, is investment that doesn't come all in one lump sum. It's spread over the 4 years, and we loosely sort of base that on 3 sort of areas. One was a sort of reset and rebuild phase, which was set at around 83 million, which was really around supporting those organisations that are kind of continuing to be in trouble. Then there's a middle section which is called Strength and Adapt, and that's around looking at how we can do things differently. So, for example, Sport Wellington are currently reviewing opportunities around shared services models and how that might impact the way community sport is delivered, to give that as one example. And then the next stage is sort of longer term, the sort of 12 to 24 month phase is called Different and Better, and that's around I guess reimagining the system and reimagining the sector. The thing I guess that we're all learning is that this is an incredibly fast-paced moving environment. So those sort of tranches of money are all really governed by Treasury. There's not $265 million sitting in a bank account that's going to come our way on the 1st of July. It is all cash flowed around Treasury's availability to be able to make those tranches of money available. So certainly the first bucket of money, that 83 million, will hit our bank accounts come July. Now, you'd be aware also some of that money has already gone out the door, so we did get some early wins to support our professional franchises. So you'll be aware from media releases last week that 4.6 million was invested into our professional franchises to keep those organisations afloat. So yeah, very much now looking into the new investment and how that's best used. I think the point to make here is that, and I'm sure everyone would appreciate this is not going to be a lolly scramble for funds. It's not going to be distributed across the whole of the sector. It is about trying to reposition the sports system for the future. So even though we've got a first stage, which is around reset and rebuild, which is around supporting those organisations that are still challenged, we still have to keep an eye on the future. So what we don't want to do, I guess, is glide the sector or glide the sports system back to BAU, because if we carry on doing what we've always done, we'll continue to get what we've always got, which sometimes can be a challenging environment. So this is our opportunity to really change the dial. So particularly for that sort of different and better phase, it is really a once in a generation reset to look at the delivery model of the system and make sure that we can sort of future proof it for further generations to come. So this work is currently taking place at the moment. We have indicated that we will have a consultation process with the system or the sector, I should say, in one way, shape or form. Clearly, there's consultation and there's consultation. Because we need to move reasonably quickly on this, we need to be selective around how we bring this to the table for input for the various different partners and organisations that make up the broader sport, play and active recreation system. And we are in the process of developing some projects to start with, but then a broader conversation around, okay, what is the best use of this money, knowing that we want to use this to take the system into a better place. So that's probably all I can tell you at the moment. It's incredibly fluid. As I've mentioned in the past, our funding from government normally is around 19.1 million, and now to be responsible for 265 million, clearly we've got to get that right, and we've got to make sure it makes a difference, because it's not going to be ongoing. It is for a 4-year window to reshape the sports system. So we need to take advice on that from the people that are actually involved at the coalface. But we also need to take a strategic approach about how we realign the sports system moving forward. So that's the main sort of comment I would make around new investment. How that lands, yet to be determined. In terms of alert level 1, I think this is information that you probably already know, but just to reiterate, I guess from a Sport New Zealand point of view, clearly we're aware now that COVID-19 is sort of controlled within New Zealand, but it's not overseas, which means our borders are closed, and apart from potential bubbles with our local neighbours, it's liable to be closed for a while. But it is an opportune time, I guess, to think about the activities that we used to do that we are now able to do. So we're back to the sort of pre-COVID activation, so to speak. And again, I'm sure you know all this, but the rules or requirements around gathering limits have gone. The rules around and requirements around physical distancing have gone. The requirements to keep records for contact tracing have been relaxed, and I'll talk about that very shortly. However, it is important that we remain vigilant. That we keep up the good practices, particularly around hygiene, and Mark talked about some of those earlier on, and we need to be prepared quickly to move back up the alert levels if they change. So we're definitely not out of the woods as yet. In terms of contact tracing, while it is not a requirement, it is still very much encouraged. So keep using those apps and keep using good practice to make sure that we know where people are and how we can contact them, and in terms of where they've been. And again, that comes back to personal responsibility as well. Keep an eye on yourself, so to speak, so that you're aware of who you're with and where you are at certain times during the day, because that all may be useful moving forward. I guess the other message to leave us with, and this is not supposed to be doom and gloom, but we're obviously in alert level 1. That's great. We also are aware now that we have some massive challenges now around the economy. And there are quite a lot of signs that things will get worse before they get better. So it is going to be a very challenging next 6 months. So it's great that we've returned to play. It's great that we've got activity now happening, but I don't think the world will be quite the same as it was pre-COVID. So we just always need to bear that in mind. Thanks, Mark. Back to you.
Cool, thanks, Colin. And really take on that point that you're making about looking forward. It's a great point that this one-off huge investment opportunity, it's so important that the whole sector really does take this on board about how we can make things better for the future for everybody through this. So really appreciate you sharing your insights into that, and it's great to hear from Sport New Zealand's perspective about how they're looking into it as well to help make this whole area of active recreation such a great thing for everybody in New Zealand. So yeah, so thanks, Colin, on that one. It's great. Okay, that's sort of the really cool little segue into the real world of an active sport. And Lisa, just bring you into the call now. It's great. Last weekend, hockey was up and running. And I guess from your perspective, that must have brought a huge smile to your face, actually, to see people out on the turfs just enjoying the game, doing it. I know I live out Tawa and popped out around Pororua and saw them out on the turf there, just lots of young people having a great time and people being together around the turf and just enjoying the whole sector. So, yeah, so how do you feel straight off?
Oh, look, really good. It's been a long, hard slog, but you're right. I went to NHS on Saturday and spent the day out there and watching the children arrive and the joy on their faces. And also, once the seniors started arriving, any sport is obviously there for the game itself, but just watching the social connections that everybody had and how much enjoyment they were getting out of being together again. So that was just as important to me as the fact that we were actually playing hockey. So it was a really special day, actually.
Yeah, and I think that is the real cool thing about the whole thing around active recreation, isn't it? And what we've been through, I think most of us reflected about how connection is so special to us in our lives. And, sport and recreating is just that perfect vehicle that can bring that together. So, and well done too, and getting it up and running so quickly too. It hasn't obviously been easy for you. And just really interested just to hear some of your insights, I guess, about what you've learned as what you've gone through this process, and first maybe around, I guess, the whole area around health and safety, and then we could move into your community and how that's been impacted and contributed to where you're at right now. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So for those of you on the call that I haven't met yet, I started as the CEO of Wellington Hockey on the 21st of January this year. And then by the 20th of March, we obviously had to close the office down and go into lockdown. So it has been challenging, but I have to say there's lots of wonderful things that have come out of it as well. Sort of the relationships that I've formed with my colleagues and the other sports has been really invaluable through these calls, and just sort of direct conversations with other CEOs has been amazing. Lucky that we've got a really awesome board that have supported us, supported me particularly through this process. And obviously the staff have been great as well. But the difference with Wellington Hockey that possibly other organisations are different is that we own our own facilities. And so that health and safety part was quite significant. We've got 6 turfs and we're responsible for everybody that comes onto those turfs. So one of the reasons we did get back up and running so quickly was that we found as soon as we came out of level 4, people were going back onto our turfs because they're accessible, mostly accessible. There's no sort of big fences around them or anything. And so we were really concerned that people were going back out and there was no health and safety processes in place. So we had to very quickly sort of run around every turf in Wellington, putting signage up, opening gates so that people, were getting rid of those touch points and making them as safe as we possibly could while we went through the process of putting sort of other things in place. So we closed off our changing rooms, we closed off the dugouts, we closed the water fountains and that type of thing. Obviously, it's been a fairly expensive exercise, so the ability to apply to this fund next week will be very much appreciated. Around the signage, cleaning, we've had to do a daily clean of our changing facilities, so that's come at a significant cost. I mean, just things like the water cannons had sat idle for 2 months, so before we could turn them onto the turf, we had to make sure we ran the water through them against, the bank or something like that, so that we can make sure that if there was any Legionnaire's disease and things sitting in them, that we flushed all of that out. So it wasn't just the COVID kind of health and safety that we were looking at. It was everything. So one of the positives, though, is that the staff now are fully involved in health and safety. They haven't really had a choice. It's been such a big project for all of us that everyone's had to sort of roll their sleeves up and get involved. And we had a weekly meeting with one of our board members who is an expert in this area, and everybody was given a little project to work on. And now we've sort of changed one of the staff members' roles so that she's solely dedicated to health and safety at all our facilities, because we've identified that that's something that we need to continue. So health and safety has definitely become the sort of the winner of our organisation through this.
That's great. And I think that it's one of the things, isn't it, that probably that you're saying there is you're actually bringing your staff together internally around some common sort of theme or cause, and it's just that connection where they have an appreciation for the bigger picture of things maybe that wasn't possibly there in the past. And that's great to hear.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I guess when you look at it in your community sense now, what have you actually really observed, I guess, through that side of it as what you've been going through from a CEO's perspective, and then what you're just noticing out on the turf now?
So I found the hockey community to be amazing, actually. They've been really supportive and patient through the whole thing, which has been really appreciated by me. We sent out a survey about a month ago, and we had a really good response to that, which was fantastic. It gave us a real lead as to who was going to be who were returning and who weren't. So we had about 91% of people that responded to the survey said they would be coming back to hockey. Out of the 9% that said they wouldn't, 40% of those said they wouldn't be coming back for financial reasons. So that's led us to an appeal that we just started yesterday, actually. We've had a lot of the community asking us what they can do to help. So we've sort of taken that on board, but we didn't want them giving money directly to the association. We didn't feel that that was right, but we were really keen for the people, if they can afford to put money into a participation fund, and then we'll be able to get that out to the members of the community that can't afford to play this year due to COVID. So that started yesterday, so it'll be really interesting to see how much support we get with that. But that's really exciting. We're pleased to be able to do something to help people. Obviously, we wanted everybody that wanted to play hockey to be able to play. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that. But no, the community's been great. We did our AGM via Zoom. I think it was the best turnout to an AGM they've had in a very long time. So again, like you said earlier, looking at new ways of doing things. Before we had, I did weekly emails as well. The feedback from the community was, even if you've got nothing to say, just tell us you've got nothing to say. So there were weeks there where I was saying, hi everybody, I have nothing to tell you, but as soon as I do, I'll let you know. And I think that was appreciated as well.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting, isn't it, how I think many sporting organisations have noticed, even with an AGM, the attendance rates where you're using technology as opposed to bringing them into a central region, and the numbers have been so much higher in terms of their attendance. And I think, the point in there, the reflection that I guess many of us are finding now is that it is that will to want to actually help as well, and it's really neat to hear about that recovery fund, or that fund that you're getting for your community to help those that maybe are impacted as a family, or just can't afford to actually play the game right now, but not to try and break down those barriers that are their participation. Yeah. But the last thing is, knowing what you know now, is there something, if you had to go through this again, how would you go about that? Is there anything that just stands out to you, Lisa, that you would think, yeah, actually, this is how I'd go about it?
That's a tricky one, because it was such a fast-moving beast that you had to react to what you knew at the time. And hindsight's a wonderful thing. If we knew that we were going to level 1 this early, we would have probably done done some of the health and safety things differently, but we had to be prepared that we were going to be at level 2 for a long time. So the decisions we made were based on that. Again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I've spoken to this before around the contact tracing. We agonised over how we were going to contact trace, and we went with ID Me and got all the signs made, and then Wellington City Council came and put their ripple signs up, and then the Ministry of Health want us to put their sign up, which is fine, but it causes a bit of confusion. So I guess if we did go down this road again in the future, which I hope we never ever have to, I think probably the contact tracing would be the one area where I would change what we did. There's signs all over the place, and I think in some ways that creates a barrier to people actually using it.
Yeah, and in some ways, does that also lead? Have you noticed people's behaviours around this whole health and safety aspect? About are people staying away, or are they just eager to just get out and play? Has there been an impact of that?
No, our team numbers are actually pretty good. In fact, in our juniors, I think we'll be slightly up. Our seniors are 2 or 3 teams down, but that's nothing, compared to the train wreck we were looking at a couple of months ago. We're really happy with that. Yeah. I think the thing from behaviour-wise, though, when we first started out, there was people were very keen to follow the rules. And then as the conversation started turning to, okay, well, we look like we're going to level 1 and the case numbers were 0 for such a long time, I think people's reactions have been to be a bit more laid back. So it's a lot harder to get people to actually do what you're asking them to.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, in human behaviour? But it's so important to keep those messaging out there because we're obviously not out of this yet. So yeah,
no, that's right.
No, that's great. And how prepared are you to go if we ever did have to go back to level 2? And hopefully we don't, but it is real. And feel prepared for that now.
Yeah, totally prepared. We've got all our health and safety plans in place. We've got all our signage there. We've got all our last weekend we had disinfectant spray in all the dugouts, so teams were wiping them down after they left. We've got hand sanitizer on every turf, so people can use that as they come on and go off. Flicking back to level 2 would be a nightmare just from the community point of view, but we'd be able to adjust to that pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, that's great. And knowing what you guys have done, you've done some amazing work to actually get your sport up and running in the circumstances that you have had to actually operate under. So really do congratulate you, Lisa, and your leadership in this area and for your team. It's been phenomenal what you have done. But like you did paint the picture, it has been a collaborative approach as well. And I think we should never lose sight of that, of some of the great...
No, definitely not. No, we couldn't have done it without the help from Sport Wellington, and also, as I said earlier, everybody, all my other colleagues, everyone was so keen and happy to share what they were doing, and it was really helpful.
Great. Hey, thanks so much for coming on, Lisa. We might have a few questions, actually. I'll just put that out to our colleague, Megan. Megan, has there been some questions come through at all?
Yep. We've had one come through for you, Lisa, asking a bit more about, are you finding that there is a fear out there about people returning to play, and what are you and your clubs putting in place to ensure that people feel safe when returning to play and train?
I haven't found that there's a fear, but I think we've been really clear in our communication. So every week we've sent out an email clearly outlining what we were doing. The fact that we kept the changing rooms closed and the dugouts closed until we had a proper process in place to be able to open those gave people confidence that when we did open them, that we were prepared and we were, they were being cleaned properly. And so, no, I have found that people have been really comfortable returning to our facilities. There hasn't been sort of any pushback at all.
Awesome, thanks so much. Those are all the questions we've had for Lisa, unless anyone sends anything through the chat. But Colin, I have a couple for you as well. One asking, do you have any idea of time frame for the consultation that you mentioned?
No, I don't actually. I mean, clearly it's something that needs to get underway pretty quickly, and so that consultation, or that process, is being worked on at the moment. So that's probably the only update. It sounds a bit vague because it is a bit vague at the moment. We are still working our way through that process, and I just want to reiterate the point, you know, because this is fast moving, and because you can do consultation that can take up to a year. We're clearly not in that luxury to be able to do that. So the consultation will be tailored with our partners and with a broader spectrum of organisations, I'm sure, to give us some good intel, but it won't be far and wide because we just don't have the time to be able to do that effectively.
Awesome, thank you. And just one more, asking about, do you know if Tier 4 funders are starting to fund community organisations?
My understanding is that some are starting to come back online. I think the Southern Trust are probably the first, from what I've heard. This is just anecdotal from me. So the thought always was that money would start to flow probably from July onwards, but it will be a trickle rather than back to normal. And part of the reason for that is that some of the legislation or some of the support that was offered to Class 4 gaming societies was to relax some of the regulations around not being able to retain money themselves. So as you may be aware, DIA have a strong relationship with the gaming industry, but one of the regulations has always been that Class 4 gaming cannot hang on to money. It has to go out the door as quickly as it can. So obviously in the period of lockdown or in the period of COVID, where there was no transactions taking place, the gaming societies themselves were teetering on the brink. So because they had no income themselves, so they've been allowed to hang on to some of that money to be able to prop themselves up, basically. So that will take time to sort of regenerate and support themselves before they can move forward. So money is due to start flowing again by July, but it may not be. It will probably be 50% of capacity, I would imagine, as a ballpark figure.
Awesome, thank you so much. Those are all the questions we've had, Mark, but I will just point to Megan from Gym Sports has just asked a question for anyone who can see it in the chat about a possible facility, and if they can they reach out to her, please?
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much, Megan, and thanks, Colin and Lisa, for coming on today. Just to wrap up, really, just a reminder about the new Sport Wellington Back to Play Fund, a relief fund. As we said, details will be on our website, so please go to that. Up to $3,000 for any organisation is available. Community Relief Fund, remember, it's open till the end of June. So again, if there's opportunities for your organisation to get access to some of that support money, please make sure you do there. Also, the webinar tomorrow around the economy and why we should change. Just have a look onto our website there again, and also on this chat function, there's information there about that. But yeah, thanks a lot, Colin and Lisa, for coming on today. Thank you to you all for coming on and listening to it. We will be doing these connecting conversations on a 2-weekly basis. And we'll also be putting out little snippets, I guess, of information in between that if there's something that needs updating. And an example of that could be around some of the Class 4 funding, just to keep people in the picture about where they're going at the moment and how they're tracking, so that you can help get some of your planning up and running as well. So again, have a great weekend, everybody. Be safe out there. Enjoy doing your recreation and connecting with people, and yeah, enjoy some of this new freedom that we've got as we're coming through level 1. So thank you again, and see you all again. Bye.